Hello guys, welcome back. So today I'm going to be doing some thrift makeovers. Just give them a little paint job to make them more my style. So when I saw these at the thrift store, I knew exactly what I was going to do with them. They are a little bit scuffed up. I'm going to give them a coat of black paint in the color Ink from Waverly Chalk Paint. They are just the perfect little silhouettes. I could have left them the color they were, but I feel like giving them one solid color will make them more versatile for anybody's decor. These are going to my booth, which I wanted to keep, but I'm going to give them a chance in my booth. If they don't sell, I will bring them back home. Now, these would look good, just solid black, but I do want to go in with some rub and buff to make them gold. So I do rub and buff on both, trying to get full coverage, but I just do about 1.5 coats. I go in one full coat, and then wherever I saw that it needed a little bit more rub and buff, that's where I added more. I'm okay with the black coming through. It gives it a little bit more dimension and lets all that detail stand out a little bit more. So I'm okay with the black coming through. And now that I got them both covered with some rub and buff, I'm going to go in with some Waverly Antique Wax just to age them up a bit and tone down this gold just a little bit. So I do paint it on and almost immediately wipe it back. I don't want it to get too muddy. I really want that Waverly Wax to sit in all those details. And that is it for this one. I give them a coat of clear spray paint and they are already in my booth, and here is the end result. Next up is this cute little lamp I picked up at the Goodwill bins. It didn't have its lampshade, so I'm going to go ahead and use this one that I already had on hand. I'm just going to go ahead and give it a little makeover. So I am going to start out by going in with the color Mist from Fusion. In the end, this doesn't really matter because I do end up decoupaging it, but I guess it does give me the light base coat so my napkins can be a little bit more vibrant. But if I knew I was decoupaging in this moment, I probably would have gone in with white. So once my paint is dry, I'm going to go in with some Mod Podge in thin coats. I am going to be using napkins, so I don't want my napkins to be too bubbly. I'm going to try and get this as smooth as possible since it is going to be a lampshade and it is going to my booth. And this napkin here, I picked it up from a pack that I got at the Goodwill bin, so I don't really know where it is from. I really like the color on it and the print. It is so pretty. So here I'm just starting in a small section. I'm going to try and smooth it out and get most of the creases out. It did get pretty smooth, but I still ended up having some creases, especially where the napkin was folded originally, but that is okay. I'm going to put on my glove here just to try and smooth it out a little bit further. In the end, I still do end up getting some wrinkles. That is okay. I don't really stress about it. If this ends up not selling in my booth, I can always bring it back home and use it here. That is one thing I do keep in mind when I take stuff to my booth or when I'm purchasing stuff for resale. I don't buy stuff that I wouldn't use in my home. I mean, I guess technically it could always be redonated, but why do that when you can just use it at home? So I'm going to go ahead and cut the excess off, and I do leave a little lip because I do plan on folding it over inside the lampshade. So I do try and line up my my napkin here to where it looks like it's just a continuation. I did tear my napkin instead of just cutting it straight to go right over that straight edge that I left on when I first started, just so it could just blend a little bit better. So I'm basically repeating the same steps as I did in the beginning, just putting light coats of Mod Podge and trying to smooth out as much wrinkles, working in very small sections. I also wanted to say that I did let each section dry completely before moving on to the next step, only because if you do end up touching another part of the lamp that is wet, you are going to get just all sticky and it's going to stick to your fingers and you're just going to end up lifting the napkin. So I did let each section dry completely. And once I reach the end to where it meets the other napkin, I'm going to go ahead and use this small brush, wetting it with water just so I can wet my napkin so it can tear off easy and I don't get that straight edge. Then just using some Mod Podge, I'm going to go ahead and glue that little section down. Then I'm also going to focus on getting the leftover napkin from the bottom and folding it over inside the lampshade just to get a more cleaner look. Then I will go over once it is completely dry with another coat of Mod Podge just to seal it all in. Then I decided to go in with some of this trim that I had left over and gluing it to the bottom of my lampshade. And I do start in what would be the back of the lampshade, because you don't want this showing when you are displaying your lamp. You want this to be able to face towards the wall. So I end up working my way around the lamp, and that is basically it for this one. What do you guys think? Next up, I kind of want to make a little plaque using this tile. I actually have a box full of tiles, and we picked up a bag of these little easels. The printable, I have it linked in my previous video. It is the same ones that I purchased. It just came with a bundle of them, so I'm using a different one that came out of that bundle. I'm starting here by adding some Mod Podge, although I would say that I think it is better to add a coat of paint. I feel like the print will stick better without bubbling as much. As soon as I placed it on my tile here, it bubbled almost immediately. And as you can see here, I do try lifting it up to see if I can take out some of the bubbles, but I feel like I was just gonna tear the print, so I just kind of left it. As you know, it's not a big deal. I do end up putting on a glove and trying smoothing out as much as I could, and I do end up using the iron and parchment paper method, and it did help quite a bit. And I did lose the clip to that, but in my previous video I do show how I actually did the iron method in case you're interested in seeing that. And as you can see here, I'm going in little swirls and I am using Mod Podge, so when this dries it can look like it has brush strokes as if it was a painting. And now to work on my easel, I'm going to go ahead and add these molds that I already had pre-made. I think they're out of the Olive Crest IOD mold, and I'm basically going to glue them on to the bottom of my easel here with some hot glue. Next up, I'm going to go in with some rub and buff. I'm kind of going for like a brass easel look. So that is why I'm going in with some rub and buff. I do about 2 coats just to get full coverage. Then I'm going to go in with some hot glue and I'm going to go ahead and glue down my tile to my easel. Next, I'm going to go ahead and give the edges of my tile here a coat of rub and buff as well, and I kind of give it a little bit of a gold shadowing on the edges of my prints. Now, if this was for resale, I would cover the back with either felt or some type of fabric to cover up the tile in the back. But since this one is going to stay here in my craft room, I didn't worry too much about it. And that is basically it for this one, and here is the end results. Next up is this beautiful jar. It has so much detail. I love the florals on it. I'm basically just gonna make it a vase. I basically stick some florals into there. I don't end up putting any foam or glue or anything like that in case I want to change it out. So I'm using some florals I already had at home. I'm basically gonna start out by placing all my white flowers in there first. The hole on top is very small. It's on the smaller side, so the more florals I put in, the tighter it gets, so the florals don't move as much. So I believe this is a mix of Walmart florals and Hobby Lobby. So once I get all my white florals in there, I am going to go in with a greenery Dollar Tree pick. I believe I picked this up a couple months ago from Dollar Tree. I basically open it up, so when I stick it into my arrangement, it looks like it is spread out throughout my arrangement, but it really is just one pick opened up. And I basically spread those leaves throughout, and I keep adding more florals until it's pleasing to my eye. I am by no means a florist. This is just how I styled up this beautiful jar that I picked up at Goodwill. And I do end up cutting this pick up, which is a little bit on the longer side, just to add a little bit of height to my arrangement. And that is basically it. Here is the end result. Next up is this little brass stand that I picked up at the Goodwill bins. I'm pretty sure this is to like a coffee pot or something to keep it warm, but this is the only piece I found. I didn't find anything else, so I'm just gonna repurpose it. So I'm basically just gonna create a little floral garden ball to sit right on top. And I'm using these flowers that I either picked up from the Goodwill bins or I got them from my sister, but I think they're originally from Amazon. So I'm basically cutting them down so I can start sticking them into this foam ball. I am going to be using a low temp glue gun so it doesn't melt the foam too much. I'm basically going to work my way around the center of the foam ball, working my way up. And I am adding glue every time I stick my flower into my foam just to make sure it is secure. So once I had it all filled up, it was kind of giving me wedding vibes. I planned on putting some little pearls in the center of the roses, but I didn't want it to look more like a wedding piece. And I decided to not add in the green leaves. I just went ahead and did without. And as you can see, it sits perfectly on this little brass stand. It's a good way to repurpose it and use it as home decor. Here is the end result. And that is it for today's video. If you like what you see, please subscribe and follow for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.